Here comes your bonus Halloween story. Hello, I am the Story Girl, and welcome to the story of the Pumpkin Brothers. Peggy was all alone in the world. Her father, who was an excellent hunter, had just died, leaving her alone with just herself and the house they had lived in. She had a house to live in, but unfortunately, no money, and the only way to get food for herself was to set out her father's hunting traps, which she knew how to do, but she had been setting them out for several days and hadn't caught a single animal, not even a single little mouse to eat, and she was getting hungry. "This is it," said Peggy. "The one last time I'll set out the traps and likely perish by morning." She set out all her traps and went through each one, checking it. Empty. Went to another one. Empty. Until she came to the very last trap. She peered inside and saw two glowing eyes. She had caught a great black wildcat. "I'm sorry, little friend," she said, "but I'm so hungry I must eat you. It's not personal, I promise." And she pulled out her knife. "You shouldn't kill me," said a voice. Who said that? She looked around, couldn't see anybody. "Me. You shouldn't kill me." It was the black wildcat that was speaking. "And why not?" said she. "I'm quite hungry, and you are the best I have at the moment." "Oh, yes, I am the best you have," said the black cat, "but not in the way that you think." "What do you mean?" said Peggy. "You would be a very fine sausage in about 5 minutes if you would just stop talking and get it over with." "Let me go free," said the wildcat. "I promise you that in the morning there will be an apple tree growing in your front yard, and underneath the apple tree will be 2 baby boys, each with an apple in their hands. Raise the boys as your own, and who knows, your fortunes just may turn around." Peggy had the knife at the ready, but she didn't have the heart to kill a cat. "Fine," she said, and she opened the trap and let the cat go free. She gathered up all of the traps and took them back home, laid down on her cot inside of her house. When she woke up, she looked out the window and saw, growing in her front yard, was a tall, stately, fully grown apple tree. One half of the apple tree was growing red apples, red as blood, red as fire, red as rubies. And the other half had apples that were white, white as snow, white as milk, white as a polar bear. And underneath the tree lay, squirming a little bit, but not unhappy, were 2 little baby boys. The one held in his right hand a red apple, and the other held in his left hand one white apple. Other than that, you could never tell the 2 boys apart. They were twin boys, as alike as 2 apples are to each other, unless the apples are different colors, of course. Peggy went out and gathered the boys in her arms and promised that she would be a good mother, praising the name of the black wildcat who had sent her this good fortune. She and the babies feasted on apples that night. She named the boy with the red apple in his hand Red, and she named the boy with the white apple in his hand Whitey. even though sometimes Whitey called Red Little Red Riding Hood, and Red sometimes called Whitey Snow White. The boys grew up very good friends, and Peggy loved them so much. Whitey, even from a young child, loved to stay with her, to stay around the house, to stay in a place where it was safe. Reddy, on the other hand, would crawl away as quick as he could if she let him. There was one day, where she had been with Whitey, taking very good care of him, when she realized she couldn't see Red anywhere, and she saw that the red half of the apple tree began to droop, and the apples began to wither and fall to the ground, dead. She scooped up Whitey and went to look for Red. She found him face to face with a poisonous snake. She didn't know what to do. The snake was poisonous. It would bite all of them and kill him, surely. But Whitey knew what to do. He lifted up his white apple and threw it at the snake. And because he was lucky, the apple crushed the snake's head, and the snake died, saving his brother from death. They found out from that experience that the tree could tell when the boys were in trouble, so she kept a very close eye on that apple tree at all times. They grew up into two very fine young men indeed, and they always kept their apples handy. Their mother had told them that the apples would bring them good luck. She also told them that one day they would meet a young woman who they would love to hold hands with better than they loved to hold their own apples, if you can believe it. Well, Red was all full of fire, ready to test his wings in the wide world. "Whitey," he said, "I want to travel. I want to go see the world, but I don't want to leave our mother alone." "Don't worry about it, Red. I'll stay with her. You go and you travel all you would like. Just promise that you'll send us a letter every once in a while." "I promise, my brother. Keep an eye on the apple tree for me." "I promise," said Whitey, and he and his mother waved goodbye as Red made his way off into the sunset. He traveled the world for a year and a day, having a year and a day of adventures, which is too many adventures for us to talk about right now. But when a year and a day had come up, he found himself walking along the side of a riverbank, whistling a tune to himself, when he happened to see a tree. Not an apple tree. And the tree wasn't what was unusual. The tree had a rope tied around to it. And tied to the tree by this rope was a beautiful girl. A beautiful girl who sagged against the ropes. Her eyes were red and puffy, like a person who'd been weeping all night, who had been weeping so long they had no more tears and no more strength. "I say," said Red, "what are you doing tied to that tree?" And he pulled out his knife to cut the cords. "Don't do it," said the girl. "Don't do it." "What?" "You must leave here as quickly as possible, young man." "Well, I'm not going to do that, not with a beautiful woman here. Don't tell me, what's wrong?" "There's been a poisonous viper, a dragon of poison and sickness that has been eating the people of this country. He promised he would stop if a girl was tied to this tree for him to feast on. One girl for every month of the year. And I am the princess of the land. I am the last young woman. After me, after he comes and eats me, there will be no one to protect the people of this land from the serpent." "Oh, that's all. I'll take care of the serpent for you," said Red. "You don't understand. This serpent is poisonous." "I've dealt with poisonous serpents before," said Red, and he threw up his red apple and caught it in his hand and stayed there chatting with the girl. The girl, whose name was Princess Charlotta, found that she enjoyed chatting with this man very much and felt in her heart how much she would miss him once he was gone, eaten by the evil monster. Of course, she would be eaten soon after, so it would be a short time of missing. Soon, the water of the river began to bubble and boil and turn into a murky black, and the head of the serpent rose up out of the water. Two will be a fine meal for me today. Red lifted up his apple and threw it at the serpent. Hit him in the head. Oh, did you just throw an apple at me? But because Red was lucky, the serpent fell to the stream floor, dead. You just killed that monster with an apple? I got lucky, said Red. He picked up his apple and cut the bonds of the beautiful princess, took her in his arms, and said, show me the way to your kingdom. I will take you home to your father. And she held out her hand to him. He dropped his apple, picked it up with the other hand, put his hand in hers. They walked back to the castle, and the kingdom rejoiced that not only had their princess been spared from being eaten from the monster, they no longer had to be concerned about the monster, and there was a royal wedding to be planned. Charlotta and Red were married. That very night, Charlotta took Red into a very special room in the castle that had on the walls pictures of every member of her family, past, present, and space for the future. These are the members of my family, she said. My grandparents, my mother and father, and my sister. Your sister? Said he. Yes. And she showed him a picture of a girl who looked just like her, but instead of having curly hair like Charlotta had, the sister had beautiful, straight, waving hair that ran down past her waist. She looks just like you, said Red. Yes, we're twins, said she. Oh, these pictures are wonderful, but what's behind those curtains? Said Red. Oh, no, you do not want to see what's behind those curtains, said Charlotta. Is it a window? What is it? No, it's just another painting, but you don't want to see it. And she grabbed his hand and tried to drag him away, but he went up and opened the curtains, and he saw a painting of a beautiful landscape that was full of fruits and flowers. Oh, where is that place? It's nothing of your concern, said Charlotta, and she tried to drag him away. No, I must go there, he said. I must go and find that place. No, every single person who has seen this painting has decided to go, but none of them have ever returned. Not even my sister. I will go, said Red, and he picked up his apple, gave his new wife a kiss on the head, and walked out the door, leaving Charlotta weeping newfound tears. She believed that she would never see him again, but Red wasn't concerned. He trotted off down the road in the direction of the beautiful landscape that had been in the painting. And as he walked, he whistled a little tune to himself, humming about how much he loved the taste of apples when he came to a little house in a clearing just before a mountain. He went up to the door and knocked upon it. A little old woman with a broom answered the door. Oh, yes, young sir, said the little old woman. Oh, old woman, said he, my name is Red, and I am looking for the beautiful landscape that nobody has ever returned from. Do you know where it is? I do, said she. But to get there, you will have to walk through my house. It's the only way. Well, very well, said Red, and he stepped over the threshold, but the moment he had, she whacked him over the head with her broom. And he knew no more. That very moment, all of the red apples on the red side of the tree withered and fell, and the red side of the apple tree began to cripple and crumble, and Whitey looked and saw it and said, "Mother, Mother, something's wrong with Red." "Oh, you must go find him. You must go find him," said his mother. "I will search." And he picked up his white apple and walked off. He walked and he walked and he walked for a week and a day until he came to a curious kingdom. No matter where he looked, he saw old men, young men, boys, and he saw old women and little girls, but no young women. Strange, strange kind of town, said Whitey, and the people of the town were looking at him with knowing eyes, waving at him, coming to dance around in circles. That was the children, of course. And he came to the castle where a beautiful young woman with curly hair ran out of the gates, shouting, "Red, Red, you have returned!" And she ran up to take his hand, but he backed away. "I am Red." And he tried to hide his white apple behind his leg. "Oh, Red, you've gotten a different apple. That's strange. Come in, come home, my love." "Yes, I'm your love." But he still kept his distance from her, making sure that they didn't hold hands. This is where I live." "Yes, silly, don't you remember? How did you get away? Did you find any of the others?" No, I didn't find any of the others. Are you my... Come into my room. Come and let's talk. Tell me what happened." And she took him into the room with all of the paintings of all of her family. And he said, "Oh, that must be your grandparents and your mother and father. But is that your sister? She looks just like you, except for the hair, of course. But what's behind those curtains?" "Don't tell me you want to look at the curtains again." Yes, I do. I just need to familiar myself with what's behind there." "Don't you remember that is what took you away in the first place?" "Oh, then I definitely want to look behind those curtains," said Whitey, and he marched up and pulled the curtains aside and saw the painting of the beautiful landscape that enchanted so many young men. "I have to go there," he said, and he quickly skirted around Charlotta and went off on his way down the path. As he was walking, he was whistling a tune about how much he liked eating apples when he saw a great big black wildcat prowling down the lane. "Good morning to you," said Whitey. "Good morning, sir," said the cat. "Oh, you can talk," said Whitey. "Yes, and it's a good thing for you that I can," said the black wildcat. "You're looking for your brother, aren't you? The one that looks just like you?" "Why, yes, I am. Well, I saw him just the other day walk underneath the tree that I was lounging on." "He was on his way to the witch." "The witch," said Whitey. Tell me about this witch, cat." "I will tell you. The witch has a magic broomstick that whoever she hits over the head with that broomstick gets transformed into an object she might be needing in the future. Be very careful when you get to her house. Don't let her use the broomstick." "Thank you very much, Mr. Cat. But how do I transform somebody from what they've been transformed into back into what I want them to?" "I didn't say you could do that," said the cat. "But you're a lucky lad. You'll think of something." Whitey and the cat said their goodbyes to each other, and Whitey continued down the path till he came to the foot of the mountain, where there was a house built right up against the foot. And he went and tapped on the door, and a little old woman answered the door, but she was so taken aback. How did you?" And he grabbed her broomstick and grabbed her by the hair and said, "I see you think you've seen me before. Where is my brother?" said she. But where is my brother? Well, I was just about to take a bath, and she led her around till she came to a great big bathtub, and floating on the waters, right in between the bubbles, was a rubber duck. Is that him? How did you know? Said she, and using the broom, Whitey flipped the duck around and saw that underneath the duck's wing was a little rubber apple, red. Thank you, and he whacked the witch over the top of the head. She transformed into a shiny little box with holes in the top and a wire coming out the side. He looked at it, didn't know what it was for, threw it over his shoulder, picked up the duck, picked up his white apple, and tapped the duck on the head. And because he was lucky, the duck transformed into his brother. The two brothers embraced each other and looked around the house and saw that it was full of knickknacks, full of little nesting dolls and contraptions they had no idea what they were for, such as blenders and toaster ovens, and full of lamps and bowls and dishes. Did anybody else ever come here? Said Whitey. Well, my wife, Charlotta, said that a lot of people came here and never returned. The two brothers picked up their apples and began tapping. And every object they tapped transformed into a young man. They tapped all of the dishes, every single one of the silverwares. They tapped the brush twice, which turned out to be just a brush, until the house was full of young men everywhere. Oh, but where is the sister? Said Red. They couldn't find a woman among them, and so they sent all of the young men home, happy to be no longer something that a witch would be eating off of. They took the little shiny metal box with holes in it and a cord coming out of it. That would be a toaster, but they didn't know that, and buried it in the yard. Well, shouldn't we be getting back to your wife? Said Whitey. You've seen my wife? Said Red. Yes, beautiful young woman with beautiful hands. Red picked up the broom and whacked Whitey over the head, who immediately transformed into a pumpkin. Red took the broom over his shoulder and tromped off back to the kingdom, where he saw his wife. When she saw him, she stepped back a bit. My darling, he said, why do you turn away? Well, the last time I ran up to you when you came back, I tried to hold hands with you, but you drew away, practically pushed me away. I didn't want that to happen again. Oh, said Red. My darling, I must go away just for a short amount of time. I promise I will return. This is for you. He handed her the broom. Don't hit anybody over the head with it till I get back. What? Said Charlotta. But Red didn't answer. He got his apple and walked off back to the pumpkin, still sitting in front of the witch's house, looking a bit lonely and forlorn. My brother, I'm sorry. Red took his red apple and tapped the pumpkin, and because he was lucky, the pumpkin transformed back into Whitey. I didn't hold hands with your wife, said Whitey. I know that now, said Red. I'm sorry. The two brothers embraced, but as they did, they heard the sound of beautiful singing. What's that? Said Whitey. I don't know, said Red. The two brothers went through the witch's house, through the gap in the mountains, until they came to a beautiful valley covered with fruit and flowers, and sitting underneath one of the fruit trees was a beautiful maiden who looked just like Charlotta, except for she had straight hair. "Hello," said Whitey, lifting the woman up. "Hello," said she. "How did you get past the witch?" "Oh, I hit her over the head with a broomstick." "Oh, then you have rescued me." "Yes," said Whitey. He took the girl, whose name was Marionette, and Whitey, Marionette, and Red went back to Charlotta, who rejoiced to see her sister returned from being captured by the witch, and the two brothers fetched their mother back to the kingdom, and the five lived happily ever after. The end. I am the story girl, and this story is an adaptation of The Blood Brothers, which I told just 2 weeks ago. If you missed that story, you can go ahead and check it out now. I have the story linked for you. It's also in the box below me, if you can see where that is. Down there. See it? Down there. If you enjoyed this story, you can get all the stories, even bonus holiday stories like we had today, if you just subscribe to my channel. If you are thinking that you would like to see more stories, go ahead and follow me on Facebook and Instagram, where we have some extra bonus stories and some conversations about stories. Hope to see you there. Bye!